clock on each other. Now, as I get started, there are a few safety aspects of this theater I'm going to share. In case you or anyone you may choose to leave the theater during the show. This is a lightning show. That means it's going to be lightning in it. With that come bright flashes and loud noises. So, if you're sensitive to bright flashes or loud noises, you always try to cover your eyes and cover your ears during the show. And if that isn't enough, you should feel free to leave the theater at any point during the show. The best exits to pick are the door you came through behind you, back into the blue wing. There's also an exit on the left side of the Mathematica exhibit, where the red glowing exit sign is, with ramp access down to the basement level. Alright, because people may be getting up to leave, we want to keep a clear path for anyone, especially in the start. Anybody see red carpet? Right in front of the stage, on the stairs, and near those doors, we would like to be clear during the entire show. The last one that we're going to about is sound. Wow, you might see me putting on headphones to protect my ears. If you see me protecting my ears, it's probably a good idea for you to protect your ears. You can do that again by plugging your ears, covering them with your hand. So to give everyone a taste of how bright and how loud these sparks can get, I'm going to start turning on one of the biggest machines I have. The machine I'm turning on right now is a 3-story tall machine in the middle of the theater with two giant metal spheres on top. This is called a Van der Graaf generator. I'll talk about this machine more in a moment, but for now, I want you to pay attention to the metal ball right on the left side. And now would be a great time to practice covering your ears.
They're really good.
There is more where that came from. For those of you who did not like that, just remember where the doors are, okay? Because there is more of that. White flashes, loud noise. I will not get offended, and there's plenty of things to see in the game. Now, over the next 20 minutes or so, I'm going to talk about lightning and electricity, but more specifically, I'm going to talk about electric charges and electric forces, how they work together to make sparks that you just saw, but also how they keep us safe. The lightning storm, I'll put that to the test near the end. We're talking about a few science and inventions, and if you stick around until the very end, I will turn on as many machines at once as I can. And we'll have the finale at the end of the show. So to get started, I want to look back at the Van der Graaf generator. So this 3-story tall machine you see in the middle of our theater is an original Van der Graaf generator. It was built by Robert Van der Graaf himself in the early 1930s. So this machine is around 90 years old at this point. And we use it every day here at the Museum of Science to do lightning demonstrations. If you look at the top of this machine, there are 2 metal spheres that are bolted together as one big metal top. But this is actually not how the machine was originally set up when it was first built and used in a laboratory by scientists. So I brought an image up on the screen on your right or your left side. You can see 2 photos. They're both photos of Robert Van der Graaf. The one on the left is a photo of Robert Van der Graaf inside one of these metal spheres. The photo on the right side is Robert Van der Graaf with another early Van der Graaf generator. But looking at that photo on the right side, that's set up in the way that ours was originally set up. So instead of being bolted together, the 2 spheres were kept separate. And what scientists did with this machine, they charged one sphere very positively and one sphere very negatively, and they used a strong force of attraction between opposite charges to accelerate atoms and smash them together. So this machine was originally used as a particle accelerator. Now I brought an image up of an illustration of what this machine looked like when it was first up. Everything is made up of atoms. Atoms have protons, those are positive charges, and electrons, those are negative charges. Charges are everywhere. They're in our bodies. They're in the air we breathe. We're made up of atoms. Atoms are tiny. Charges are tiny. You can't see them with our eyes. But these charges make me feel force with each other. So we have two or more charges, they're opposite, a positive and negative, they're attracted towards each other. But if we have two or more of the same kind of charge, all positive or all negative, they repel each other. They push each other away. In two directions, the pulling of opposite charges and pushing of like charges make up the electric force. I brought a diagram of that up on the screen, but this is an invisible force. We can't see the electric force. We can see the effects of the electric force, especially with unbalanced charges. If we bring along one type of charge together, like charges repel, so they try to push away from each other to find opposite charges. So I changed the video feed to a camera that's now inside the Van de Graaff generator. This camera is in the basement of the right column, looking up into the column. And what you can see on the video feed are some giant rubber conveyor belts. These belts actually stretch from the basement through the right column to the metal spheres at the top. And I'm going to turn the machine on again. It's not going to be loud just yet, but you are going to hear a sound of the motor starting to spin. As that motor spins, you can see the video feed, those belts are starting to spin. And as these belts spin, they roll up against rollers, and charge gets caught along them, pulled up to the top. So in this case, we're now collecting extra negative charge on the metal spheres at the top. It's one type of charge, so they're pushing away from each other, like charges repel. They're spreading out over the metal surface, but they're stuck on the surface of the metal top. Air surrounding the machine, holding the charges there. Air is an insulator. And an insulator is a material that electricity has a hard time moving through the flow. So I can use the thing to help see the effects of collecting the charges. I can raise something up to be taller than the theater. Right now we're making a kite on the right side of the theater with a giant knee tied to it and a giant knuckle up close to that. And by raising this kite up, the gap of air between the metal spheres at the top and the ground is much smaller. Something connected to the ground, much smaller. And the other thing I can do is raise the voltage. Voltage is measuring energy the charge has. So by raising that voltage up high enough, that's when the charges have enough energy to finally jump through the insulating air to reach the other surface. And that can be here and see some interesting. I'm going to do that. I'm going to raise the voltage. I want you to cover your ears again. Pay attention to the kite on the right side. Make some observations, and then we're going to talk about them while this is moving. So please cover your ears. All right, we're raising the voltage now. This is actually a great demonstration of why you should never fly a kite in a boat. We do here in a controlled environment, but we can see there's some sparks. Those sparks are very bright, very loud. We're not actually seeing the charges. The charges are too small for us to see. We're seeing the effects of those charges interacting with each other, moving through the air. As those charges push through the air, they heat it up. That hot air gets so hot that it glows. So what we're seeing is actually hot glowing air. And the sound is because that air spins as it heats up and pushes on the air around it, eventually pushing our eardrum, cooling in our eardrum. So heat and light and your sound is three effects that you can observe when the charges are pushing through the air. And you can observe the same three effects in a different way by looking at a different device I have in front of the stage called a Tesla. And I have a small Tesla here in the front left, sitting on a wooden cart. Tesla itself is about 3 feet tall, looks like it's wrapped in copper wire. And there's a small Tesla in front, right of the stage, or right and left. Same description. And Tesla was invented by a scientist named Nikola Tesla. I brought an image of Nikola Tesla up on the screen. I'll talk about it more in a moment. For now, I'm going to show you my two small Teslas. So, Teslas have sparks coming out of the top of them. Tesla works in a very different way than the Van de Graaff generator does. If you have questions, feel free to come and ask. But I want to talk about the effects we can observe as charges are pushing out of the top of the device. So as those charges push out of the top, they heat the air up. The hot air is so hot that it flows, and the hot glowing air expands, per second coming out of the top of these two Tesla coils. And that's so fast that our eyes can't see those individual sparks, and our ears can't hear those individual pops of sound. Instead, our eardrums are vibrating 120 times a second to the top. So we get that constant pitch or that constant buzzing look. And we'll talk about that more in just a moment. The heat should be that light for that sound. It's actually a force effect that's observed in the Tesla coil, and it's the reason why Tesla invented the Tesla coil all the way back in the late 1800s. Tesla has a great idea. It used his invention, the Tesla coil, to wirelessly light up our lights and power our buildings. Now, I have a light bulb here. It's just the bulb. It's not plugged in any way. But I'll show you something. I bring the light in the theater down for effect, and I get close enough to the Tesla coil. Yeah, at some point, my light turns on without being plugged in. This is because the force effect is the electrical forces and radio waves in a cyclic gas in my flux tube, causing it to light up. You can see this actually works. My light is not plugged in. I am not plugged in, right? But this isn't very efficient. I have to get pretty close to the Tesla coil for this to work. If I move a few feet away, my light gets dimmer until it's no longer on. But even though this actually works to wirelessly turn on my light, it's not very efficient. We don't use this around very much for this purpose. If you think about it a little bit more, it would be a terrible idea for us to have high voltage sparks coming out of our walls just to turn on our lights without plugging them in. So we just plug them in. We can learn interesting things still by looking at these Tesla coils. These are small Tesla coils. I call them small because they're 3 feet tall. They produce sparks that are half a foot long. But they operate in the tens of thousands of volts. Remember, voltage is the measure of energy in the circuit sound. So tens of thousands of volts give us these size sparks. I have a giant Tesla coil in the back right over here. That Tesla coil is 8 feet tall. It's the one that looks like it's wrapped in white wire with a metal donut on top. That Tesla coil operates in the hundreds of thousands of volts. Much higher voltage means we can produce much bigger sparks. Do you want to see sparks do that? Okay. I think we'll do that. That Tesla coil also has 120 sparks per second. And that means that air is going to vibrate at the same rate. We're going to hear the same sounds that we're hearing with the sparks in these two small ones. So I want you to cover your ears, pay attention to the back right. I'm going to show you some big sparks, but I want you to listen through your fingers. Okay, please cover your ears. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. I have two Tesla coils here in the theater on the left side that are both differently. These two that are about 7 feet tall, they look like they're wrapped in copper wire with a metal loops on top. These two Tesla coils, machine something sparks per second. What means you can have a lot more than 120 sparks per second, making our eardrums vibrate faster than here at 5 or a lot fewer than 120 sparks per second. Our eardrums will vibrate slower, and we'll hear a lower pitch noise. Using the two Tesla coils on the left side of the theater, we can play music with just sparks. So play this song. I want you to cover your ears and take this to the left side of my musical Tesla coils. This is pretty amazing. This is not what Nikola Tesla did in the Tesla coil before, but we can continue to experiment and learn new things. Alright, so it is getting close to the end of the show here, actually. And it's a great time to talk about safety before we start. If you look closely, all the big machines here in the theater behind these metal wires. These wires stretch from the ceiling to the ground, they go all the way around the room. These wires are pretty much stayed out here in the audience right now. And they do that by providing a much more convenient path for chargers to take along them or away from us than coming through the wires up here. And a similar thing actually keeps us safe in buildings. If lightning gets during buildings, luckily there are metal pipes and wires built into the walls around them, which provide a more convenient path for electricity to take along them, away from us, to the ground, rather than coming into the middle of the room, away from pipes, away from wires, where hopefully all of us are. Now, when you're not in a building, how many of you here have heard that you're safe in a car if lightning's going to strike? How many of you heard this? Yeah, a lot of us have heard this. How many of you have heard that it's a rubber tire of a car to keep you safe? A lot of us have heard that too. How many of you have heard that's not true? Alright, all of us have heard that. Maybe you've seen this show before, maybe you've done some research. It turns out that's not true. And so, I have one more demonstration before we get to the finale so that you'll all read it again next time you see the show. Alright? So, for those of us that may have learned that rubber tires are what keep you safe in lightning strikes, at first it sounds like that should make sense. Rubber is good insulated. Electricity has a hard time moving through insulated. But if you think about it a little bit more, it actually doesn't make sense. Because air is also very good insulated. And if lightning is going to travel through miles of insulating air to reach a car, the purity of the rubber on the bottom of the car does not keep us safe. For me, that's a great thing because I don't have any rubber tires on my cage that I've just gotten in. This cage is a great model car in many ways. It's got a nice carpet, it's got a nice door, a seat. There's metal surrounding on all sides, but there are no rubber tires. My closest tire is about 5 feet away from me. But I don't need that because it turns out it's the metal of the car that keeps us safe if lightning strikes. The important thing here is that metal is surrounding on all sides, all the way around, on the top, the bottom, fully surrounding me with metal. I know that sounds weird. Metal is a good conductor, which means electricity flows through it very easily. I'm, in this case, proving it. I'm raising myself up to be the tallest thing in the theater, most likely thing to get struck. I'm going to turn on the vent generator so I can get along the side. So if all goes well after this, we will have our finale. And if all goes well, then this is the finale. Okay? I don't worry anyone. I've done this many times. For your safety, I want you to simply cover your ears. This is a little bit loud again. I'll cover mine as well. I'll talk about why I'm safe after this demonstration and get to our real finale. Please cover your ears, raise the voltage, start the cable on the side. Alright, the 9-year-old machine is getting up to speed. And I'm about to start raising the voltage. Here we go. About why I say you're going to see. Now, there are 3 reasons why you're getting hard lightning strikes. One of them is something called the skin effect. Lightning strikes very quickly, and the quick striking of lightning causes a very rapid change in the flow of charges in my metal cage. So not moving, very quickly. That rapid change in the flow of charges actually creates forces that push the moving charges to the outside of the metal. And that means on the inside, I can sit down, I can stand up, I can touch the metal on the inside and feel nothing. As long as I don't touch the outside metal or stick my arms or legs outside of the cage, right? So There are two reasons why you're safe in a car when it's driving. The one I just described is called the skin effect. Because only on the outside skin of the car or the cage or the conductor are the charges. So you've been a great audience. Thank you for being patient and making it to the end here. We're going to get our finale started. We're going to recap what we talked about. Talked about electric charges, electric forces, how they work together to make spark, but also how they keep us safe in the lightning storm. We just went back to the test, and I say that went pretty successfully. Talked about Robert Van der Graaf and Nikola Tesla, and how their work helped us understand more about electricity. And now it's time for our finale. So, after this, the show is over, and you're all welcome to enjoy the rest of your day in the state. If you have any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them. I just ask that you stay in the carpet and not go up on the stage after the show or take your reasons. Alright? Otherwise, sit back, relax, if you can, if you want to. And please, one last time, remember to cover your ears.